Elisa, you're running Terex in North America for Adidas, and I can't wait to talk shop with you. This is actually going to be so fun to kind of dig into all this stuff. We're both here in Portland, and we're both so fired up about the outdoor industry. And I actually had an experience with the brand a long, long time ago, so I have a lot of love for everything that you guys have done. But it's going to be a fun discussion today. I think we can go in about 50 different directions with today's chat.
For sure. Thanks so much, Aaron, for having me. I feel honored. I feel like I'm the most boring guest you'll have on this podcast, but I'm still very excited about the conversations we'll have.
I think unlikely. I think this is going to be really fascinating to a lot of people because I think that the bigger brands that are out there, I mean, you don't often get a chance to really sit down and have a real conversation. A lot of the stuff that comes out from these bigger brands is like a polished press release, or they let the athlete, you know, take front and center and stuff. And so we don't really ever get to see sort of the behind the scenes, the inner workings, the discussions, the way that things are built, or even the thought process of why did you do this thing? How did you build it this way? And I think that's what today is going to be really exciting to dig into, like what Terex has done. And the brand has been around actually for a really long time, and now is a big part of the conversation. But we could talk about a lot of the different things. I think the right place to start, because a lot of people in the outdoor industry are still trying to figure out how to get into the outdoor industry. Maybe the best place to start is sort of your origin story. How did you get into the outdoor industry?
Yeah, awesome. Well, first off, you'll get the raw and the real from me. That's my personality. So I'm very excited about our conversation. And about my journey, well, here comes the first unpopular career advice. I never had a career vision. I'm pretty much a live in the moment type person. I call myself an opportunist. So when an opportunity presents itself, I'm very, for the people that care about this, I'm in full on Aries. They say it's our first round on Terra. So I'm very adventurous, very action driven, very impact driven, very comfortable with leadership and taking people along. So this is what it was for me. I was born close to Berlin. You might pick up an accent here, right before Germany became a unified country. So for the people that know about history, they now know about my age too. And so my parents grew up in a country that they were never allowed to leave, really. And their lived experiences were very humble, very family oriented, and they taught me what they loved most, and that was sports from the very beginning. So I was on skis in the Czech Republic before I could properly walk. And then never missed a volleyball practice, went on to study sports management in pretty close to home in Leipzig. Shout out Leipzig, best city. And in during university, I was looking for a side gig, for a job, as many students do, and got the opportunity to work as a tech rep for the brand for Adidas. So that was my first introduction. So I was doing staff clinics, I was doing little events, little like getting shoes on people's feet, and that was for outdoor and running specifically, and that got me to the next opportunity. That got me an internship with the brand. So then I had the internship in the global headquarters, a small town called Herzogenaurach. Little Adi history here. This is literally the town where our founder Adi Dassler was born. And another fun fact, just right across the street is the global headquarters of Puma, because the founders have been brothers, as a lot of you might know. So there's this tiny city where probably 10,000 people live in, but then 30,000 people commute to every day, living in the bigger surrounding cities, working for these big global brands. So this is where I had my internship with the global product marketing team for Adidas Outdoor. So this is where the product creation happens in Germany. We have what we call creation triads. There are development, design, innovation, testing, all these things that we are putting a lot of pride into the craftsmanship of our products, into the quality of our products. So those facilities are just top notch when it comes to product testing, and then opportunities for field testing, integration of athletes, doing tests with athletes. And for me, out of a small town, never really having traveled a lot, because that was not something that my parents kind of shared with me a lot, I was mind blown in this big campus, very international, needed to pick up learning my English, my professional kind of shop talk English. And after that internship, which was such an incredible experience, I was like, okay, now I'll go travel, I'll go see the world, go back to university. But coming back to the opportunist part, there was an entry level position offered at the brand for an assistant product manager. And I was like, oh, I can always go back to uni. I have my bachelor. I can always go back and do my master's. And then started as an assistant product manager in 2012 with Adi, so a little over 13 years ago, and never left. Never left. Grew up with the brand, and we can talk a little more about this. But I've worked in 3 different continents, probably 5 different functions. Because I think in a big company is so complex, right? And for me, it was really important to learn that end-to-end process to build my confidence in whatever function I'll end up with. Though I'll give it away, I always knew I would end up back in the outdoor team. I started in the outdoor team and then moved around, gained my experiences, and I always knew I would come full circle. So then for the past 6 years, I've been working on outdoor in Portland. First, I've been leading the product merchandising strategy for Terrex and 510 for North America. And now for the past 1.5 years, I'm heading up brand and product, bringing those two together and really building those cohesive stories with a fantastic team here in Portland.
What an interesting story that you really started in on the ground floor, like putting shoes on people, and you really learned a lot as an intern. I've got to ask, when it comes to getting into these brands, because I think working for Audi or working for any other of these larger brands, it's obviously aspirational for a lot of people in the outdoor and sports industries. And it does seem like a lot of people come in through that entry level point. What do you think it would take for someone who maybe doesn't want to start off in an internship role to get in? Is it possible to get your way through the door? And of the people that have done it that you've interacted with, what are the characteristics or what are the backgrounds that typically get them through the barrier of coming into a big brand like that?
Yeah. I feel many people think an application is the first step, but it isn't. It's what you did before, the network you built before, the experiences you had before. So even for entry-level positions, an internship or working for an agency that worked with Adi, having projects already that kind of get you in touch with some of the people that can advocate for you is really, really important on all levels. And then for your question about talent not on entry-level positions, we are a big brand, so whatever complementary skill set you can bring to us is interesting. So we love working. I mean, a big brand sometimes can be slow. We try to be agile for sure, but massive brand, lots of processes. So if we have people that show entrepreneurial experiences or have kind of various skill set that complement some of the things and some of the workforce that has been growing up in a global corporation, that is really interesting for us, and that really piques the excitement.
I think that's one of the great things about the internet in general is that there are so many opportunities to demonstrate your expertise and to build experience so that you can show that off when you do get in a room with people like that. I remember my first interview at Red Bull. They had asked me, and I'd been working with Red Bull in a lot of different capacities, and I'd been doing events and production and content and everything well before that. And I remember them asking me, like, what do you think you could do? And I said, well, here's what I've done without a bull and sun on my business card that I think is to the standard or higher than the standard. Imagine if you took this and put a Red Bull logo on my business card, what could be unlocked from there? Having the resources. I did this on my own. Imagine if I had the resources of a big brand, what could be possible? And I think that was a big lever for that conversation because it's like, yeah, a lot of people, even in the sponsorship world, like, oh, if I could just get sponsored, then I could do this thing versus the person's like, I'm doing all these things, and if you want to come along for the ride, this probably work out pretty great for both of us. It's such a different conversation, but a lot of people, maybe don't know where to start with that conversation and how that might look.
Yeah, I feel every employer always looks for people that can add to the culture, that can add to the JD they are hiring for. You don't just want to you don't just want to understand from people how they fulfill the JD and the roles and responsibilities, but what is the unexpected one that how they can take this job further than we could have imagined. I know it's an impossible journey, but it's all about diverse skill set and experience that really can bring us all forward together.
Absolutely. I'd love to kind of dig into sort of the structure of Terex because I think people don't really necessarily see behind the curtain of the different elements that go into running a brand like this in the US. And I know that you brought Terex, over to the US somewhat recently and had to kind of build the team up. So maybe just to educate people that don't know, I mean, what the opportunities look like or what the team actually looks like. What does it take to run Terex in terms of the different roles and functions when it comes to building a and running a successful outdoor brand?
Yeah, it's you can kind of think about us as a startup within a big brand, and which that comes with so much good and challenging at the same time. So our day-to-day challenge is to where do we use the power and the support of our big brother, and where are we a little different, a little more nimble, a little more dirt baggy, because that's the consumer, and a little more scrappy. Because that's the community we connect with, right? They don't necessarily care about us being a big brand. Some do, which is some of the double positioning we can talk about later as well. But yeah, so all the product creation sits in Germany. This is where kind of the heart of the global strategy, the global product strategy, activation strategy, athlete strategy, all that sits. So in simple terms, our big opportunity and role as a market team is to bring that strategy to life in North America and connect that strategy authentically with the consumer in North America. And this is where it then gets interesting, because we want to be true to our heritage as a German-born brand. At the same time, consumers are also different everywhere. I mean, you cannot even say the NAM or the US consumer. Also, when I refer to NAM, I mean North America, because we also look after Canada. I'm sometimes getting caught up in acronyms, so always feel free to ask. Um, the consumers are so diverse. So we work kind of 50% with our global team, making sure they have everything they need to create relevant product and stories for our consumer. And then the other 50% with our market teams, with accounts, with consumers here, with communities here, on bringing the brand to life in North America. And you're right, we just brought the brand in-house in 2019. So myself and three others were the founding members of the adidas outdoor team in North America. And before that, there was a business, but it was run by a distributor. So I think there was definitely business continuity, but in 2019 we were really starting to bring brand and sales and product together and kind of build a more holistic strategy, with more support from the internal brand.
Can you explain that a little bit more? So, I mean, because in the States, obviously, Audi is sold and has like their own stuff, but how was it that Terex was going through a distributor? What was the purpose for that?
I think it's sometimes with brands. I mean, brands use distributors to make connections in different territories. And as outdoor is a smaller authenticating business for Adidas, and I think Adidas has also been building the brand in North America for a long time and had big priorities to do that, so that it felt potentially easier leveraging those existing relationships with accounts and with communities that the distributor had at this point, to start testing and trying some products till it reached that critical point to say, okay, now there is enough consumer demand and there's enough openness from the community to really put our full brand support and brand power behind this. So I think it was a little bit just of the early days of building the outdoor brand in North America for Adi.
So then what does the US team look like? I'm assuming there's like a communications person who's kind of overseeing stuff. Can you give me a little bit of the breakdown of sort of what the US team looks like?
At the core of our teams, we have the product merchandising. So they basically decide and define the product offering we want to get in front of consumers in North America. That is important because a global product range can be massive. So then out of that global pool, there's products that go to Asia, there's products that go to Europe, there's products that go to North America. In a perfect world, a global brand wants to have the highest possible overlap, but that's obviously not realistic because consumer needs are so different. So our goal is to pick the right product for the North American market. We would mess a little bit with prices sometimes if just the price reality is different here. We would adjust segmentations. Where do these products want to live? So that's all the product work. We have a team of product merchandisers. We have a team of marketing and communication, so that's sports marketing, really important to our strategy. Events and grassroots, the absolute heart of our strategy. This is how we are building the brand here in North America. Trade marketing for all retail needs, customer needs, little events, and market activation, and kind of the traditional comms, campaigns, activations, sponsorships, things like this, media buy. And then we have a digital activation person as well for all things digital activation. And then what we work really close with is our specialty sales team. So it's really important for us to authenticate the brand in the outdoor specialty world. So we connect a lot with our outdoor specialty sales team all across the US to make sure that we have the right product for them and support them in their sell-in, build those relationships. So that's a big part of it. Of us as well. And then we also have access to all the different functions that the Adi brand offers us, right? Our own D2C, for example, direct to consumer. So that's Adidas stores, e-commerce, and factory outlets. We work really closely with them. Operational support, supply chain, all that good stuff is where we leverage the brand.
That's got to be one of the biggest advantages is sort of that built-in infrastructure to make it happen. And you can probably lean on a lot of those teams to really help close gaps. But also, I've got to imagine you could probably poach some talent here and there as well.
For sure. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're doing. And the other way around too. I mean the fact that we are a little bit of a different setup within the brand and kind of developing different skill sets for our team members is really interesting for other functions in the brand as well. So it goes both ways.
What's that like when it comes to really, you kind of talked a little bit about bringing a local face to this global brand. What's it like having this sort of team in Germany that's got the overarching strategy, but then you have to kind of pitch into them to get approval on something that is only really meaningful and relevant to the US. How do you kind of balance that fine line if you've got an idea that you know is going to work in North America and they're not getting it there?
Yeah, if we have that idea, we'll not let go. We'll be very tenacious. But it's as you said, it's constant pitch mode. Constant pitch mode. We're one of the key markets for Adidas Outdoor globally. We're not the biggest one yet.
Hmm.
So we're in constant pitch mode, and I think it's all about building comprehensive business cases. And they sometimes, when I talk about business, that's sometimes volume, but that's really often also credibility. And this is the right thing to do to connect with this consumer. It's also about being transparent about any risks that are that. So I think we really play a one team mentality with our global team, and we've created the shared responsibility of winning with the community and the consumer here. And I think as long as we can have that and really understand, I mean, they were just out here last week. I was doing consumer roundtables with parts of our global team. We saw so much retail. We hang out in so many stores last week in different cities. So they're super supportive in learning about continuously learning about the consumer and our situation here. So that's what it is. Constant pitch mode.
That's cool. It must be kind of helpful that you've been at HQ, the global HQ. There's probably a level of trust that comes, and also as someone who's native to Germany, to be able to say like, "Hey guys, the people in North America operate in this way. Let me give you the context." Kind of putting those two together. There was a really funny story within Red Bull ages ago where a big channel for the collegiate marketing was the Greek system, right? So every college has all these organizations, fraternities, and sororities. And someone was pitching to one of the higher ups in brand in Austria. and they were talking about Greek this, Greek that, and the guy just got like real flustered and raised his hand. He's like, "Are there that many Greek people in America that we need to be like marketing to them?" And it took a minute for them to like, oh no, no, here's the, like what that means, and these little things can really trip up the conversation a lot of times. And so having somebody that can kind of understand both sides is a pretty important element, right? And I think the value that you built that trust with the international team, and now you can kind of represent both sides, is probably maybe underrated, but massive in terms of your ability to execute as well.
No, you're exactly right. For collaboration too. I mean, I know like sometimes the Germans just want to talk German, so I can accommodate that. And then the funny thing is that when I got here, I mean, there's always cultural adjustments, right? Without being stereotypical, but the way of communication, the way of collaboration is very different. I mean, us Germans, we are known for being very direct, very to the point, like no pleasantries here. And I think it sometimes takes us a while to let people know that we are so direct because we care about people and our relationship, and we always want us and others to get better and improve and all that. But while at the beginning that those were some things that I struggled with in my communication and collaboration here, by now 7 years later in the US, I'm sometimes sitting in calls with my German colleagues, and I'm like, wow, okay, your communication could be a little more assertive right now. So it's just really funny seeing that change. I mean, it might have come. I mean, I have a fully American kid, and feel very embedded in the culture here without losing my roots, obviously. But I think it's just so helpful. And I lived in Latin America before that. I think it's just really helpful understanding different cultures and their ways without being stereotypical again, right? But it creates that fluency and just that general openness of being able to communicating and working with all different kinds of people, which is something I feel like I can do really well.
That's
I
cool.
usually get along with people.
Oh, I've got to imagine that traveling around and moving around to different countries and different roles and functions has been probably one of the biggest levers in your entire career too, right? You have a chance to work with different kinds of people, learn different parts of the business, and then when you get in these conversations, you have so much context to how everything comes together. It's not sort of this singular focus. Like if you had just stayed in outdoor the entire time, you may not have the context to make a really solid argument for something that you actually want.
Yeah, that is such a good point, Aaron, honestly. And I feel more so than functionally, honestly, every role can be learned in my mind. But the mindset you develop in being exposed to those different work or cultural situations, that just creates that constant curiosity and real interest in people and how they work. This is not something that you can learn in functional roles. So this to me was the most impactful, honestly, for my path.
One of the things I've got to imagine is probably the trickiest when you're having these discussions between North America and HQ is how do you make those decisions based on, there are probably certain SKUs, products, directions that you could go that would make the most business sense, that would lead to the highest, number of sold SKUs versus here's the thing that actually really matters to the community. How do you balance this out? Of course, the answer is like, oh, we try to make something that does both, but that's not always the case. How do you balance those conversations?
It's really hard creating something that makes both, and people will call you BS probably. It's a constant tension that we live in, right? It's because so what we try to do is what is the most authentic to us as a brand. And I think honestly, like being self-critical, there was a time when we tried really hard being another outdoor brand. But then going back at really our roots and celebrating our athletic heritage and our heritage of the fact that we always have been servicing athletes on all different levels in all probably most of the sports that are out there. And so the democratization, is that an English word?
Yeah, yeah,
Democratization.
yeah.
Being democratic as a brand is part of our identity. So, but then innovating and creating to people in more niche environments and niche sports has always also been part of our identity. So it needs both, and probably the level of effort is sometimes different. You put a lot of effort into the more niche consumer insights and athlete needs, and the return on investment is not that high, but it's really important to our identity. So that's the balance that we try to strike, like the responsibility of being democratic and accessible as a brand, getting more people into outdoors because this is a role that we ever as a big global brand have. But then at the same time, staying true to our heritage of innovation, keep pushing boundaries in sports and evolution of those products, making athletes better at the same time. It's a fun tension, and I think while it is a big tension, it creates bigger solutions.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine there's probably some kind of overlap where something that you developed over here could end up playing into something else. I think my favorite example where I really realized how serious they were about that a long time ago, we ended up at this ice luge in Austria, I think, when we first signed with Adi way back in the day. And they had these shoes that had spikes on the bottom of them for the ice, for running on the ice. And of course, if you've seen Cool Runnings, you know they had, the Adi tracksuits and stuff. But the fact that a shoe brand or out, sports brand in general would make these like they couldn't have sold more than like 50 pairs of those shoes. And I'm sure they cost an obscene amount of money to develop and to make and to whatever. If you've ever seen these shoes, they just look like a shoe of like a flat shoe with a bunch of needles on the bottom. They're crazy looking. But who does that, And that was for me one of the biggest examples of like, wow, that's they went deep. Like they're not going to sell enough to make this worth their while, but they still did it anyway. That was a big signal for me that the brand was really really interested in actually even just going down that path.
Yeah, that's a really fun story. Yeah, we have a big part of the organization focus on athlete only products as well, because athletes always want products that are tinkered with, that are just a little bit of a different variation compared to what you could buy commercially, because their needs are so specific. They would need shoes for one specific race or one specific project, or so that's a big part of our work as well, as athlete specific products. And then you mentioned the sharing technologies and sharing innovations. That's a lot of what we do as well. And again, this sometimes creates unexpected and new solutions for different industries. I mean, one very easy one, a lot of you might know, Boost, the midsole technology that has been revolutionary when we launched it in, I think, 2013, in the running category. And bringing this into the outdoor world was definitely unexpected. And people were like, this is a running midsole technology in the outdoor. But it actually has some crossover benefits, or some different benefits, which is thermal insulation, extreme durability, that are super beneficial in the outdoor world as well. So we created the first full boost midsole hiking shoe, I think in 2019. And that was just like, okay, we are an outdoor brand with an athletic heritage, and will proudly use that to create different solutions for the outdoor world. And it's been really fun doing that. And I mean, now many people know us from the trail running world, and it's kind of crazy to see that we have shoes that our amazing athletes win podiums in both road running and trail running at the same time with similar technologies, which is just really cool to see and to celebrate.
That's really cool. Can you talk a little bit more about the team that makes athlete basically custom shoes? How does that process work? So say you've got somebody that's going to race Western States, for example, or some event, and they want to have some feature. What's that process actually look like?
Yeah, fun you mentioned Western States, because the Gravik Speed Ultra, which many people of you know as our super shoe for the trails from Terrex, was born because our former athlete Tom Evans needed a shoe for Western States. He was like, I need a shoe that makes me go really fast downhill and do not make my legs feel tired for the uphills that are coming after that, because many of you know Western States is a net downhill race, but then still you're climbing tons of elevation. So going really fast on the downhills, but then still having the energy for the climbs, was the brief for that shoe. And our athletes approach us with projects like this all the time, and then the team gets scrappy, and then processes and milestones and fact this it all comes back to factory collaborations, what can we do in-house, relationships with our partners from different technologies, and the teams get very scrappy, very innovative, and put out first prototypes, and then it goes from there. So it's a lot about prototyping, experimenting, that we do on all levels with our athletes, but we also do it with consumers. We had a project once, actually the original free hiker, where we followed a guy along the Pacific Crest Trail for the full 6 months and sent him new prototypes of a hiking boot every 2 months. Because of that, we saw, I'm kind of jumping topics here, but I know your head is spinning. You'll have to follow up questions. I hope I'll let you at some point. Because I mean, we were developing hiking products and we saw on the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, that people were ditching their heavy boots for lightweight trail runners, but then they needed new shoes every month because lightweight trail runners weren't as durable. So then from that, we created the brief of, can we create a really durable hiking boot that feels like a lightweight trail runner? And this was the original story of the free hiker.
Well, let's dig into the shoe that Tom was wearing at Western States, because that ended up becoming a shoe, and I think he around the time you launched the actual shoe was when he won, if my memory is somewhat correct. So what did that look like in tandem? Were you sort of developing the shoe already, and then you made a version of it for him, or like the version that you made for him in the process of making it, you're like, this is actually probably something that's commercially viable. Is there an interaction that kind of happens there as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the at some point when we actually launched the shoe in April 2024, the community was annoyed because they've been seeing the shoe on athletes for probably 1.5 years already, and they're like, "When are you finally giving us access to this shoe?" But I mean, the races are the ultimate tests for our athletes, so we need to get the prototypes out for them to test. But for us, before really launching it commercially, we want to make sure it can withstand. It can be very durable. It shouldn't just be a one race shoe. One race shoe is sometimes what we build for our athletes, but it wouldn't be a sustainable thing to launch with the public. So while the shoe was right for a long time from a performance perspective, we tweaked a lot of the longevity and durability of the shoe. So people like you and I can get more miles out of that shoe than just one race.
I've got to imagine, from the perspective of GTM, for those listening, GTM is go to market, which is essentially kind of the 360 plan that you build from sales to marketing to social to all the different, paid ads, everything that goes around the launch of a shoe. From the person who's leading GTM for a shoe launch like that, they must go insane every time an athlete comes back and says, we were so close, but I need you to change one more thing before it's ready to go. I mean, what are those processes like when you're okay, we're going to launch a shoe this year, we're going to put budget against it, we're going to put resources against it, and then oh no, actually we need another 6 months to develop it. Like how do you deal with timelines when you've got that kind of sort of element involved?
Well, not so secret about this is that our athletes will always get their special versions for shoes and for races with different components. And at some point, we as a cross-functional team need to be comfortable about a shoe being ready for the community, because we know that with our athletes we'll continuously work on new iterations, and by the time one shoe launches they are already onto the next one, testing the new material, seeing how we can push the boundaries even further. So yeah, this is I mean, a go-to-market plan for a project like this is incredibly complex, because that kind of natural teasing that the visibility of the prototype creates, how can you use that for your advantage without pissing too many people off that they cannot get it yet? So yeah, it's a really fine balance and a fun project to work on for sure.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about athletes specifically, because I think, competitively you have some really incredible athletes, but also, beyond that, I think one thing that the brand has done well is a lot of project-based stuff as well. What does it look like when, and again, we know that the overarching athlete strategy is based in global, but I've got to imagine you've got a pretty heavy thumb on the scale when it comes to how that manifests specifically in North America. What are the things that you're looking for when you're adding athletes to the roster and when you're, kind of thinking about renewals and who you're working with and kind of the makeup and grouping of everybody?
One unique angle that we look at a lot is that our goal is to build a team and not just an athlete roster. And we really, really proud ourselves in when our athletes show up at races, let's say trail running as an example, they show up as a team. They all look the same. They all cheer each other on. You will see some top level athletes not running and just equipping and supporting, being part of accruing different other athletes in top races, just because they're there to crew their friends and help out and be part of the family there. So I think building a team is really important for us. So more so than the results, we look at the human, we look at their personalities and see if there's the good match there with the family and the team that we already created. And then looking at the brand further and thinking about interesting crossover opportunities with maybe other areas of the business, because we always think about, okay, what is something that we can offer the outdoor community that no vertical outdoor brand can offer the outdoor community? And it's like, I mean, in a big thought, it would be like a Messi in hiking shoes or something like this. But think in those terms. And also, we've always been a brand that lived at the intersection of sports and culture. I mean, a little bit of a fun side note and history lesson here. I think in 1986 is when we signed Run DMC, and I think back then it was like one of the first instances where a sports brand would engage and connect with the cultural world in that part, hip hop, and so that has been part of our identity at like for a very long time. And fun fact, that same year in 1986, we as an outdoor team built speed hiking shoes for Reinhold Messner on his project to become the first person to climb all 14 8,000ers without supplemental oxygen support. So it's like celebrating those stories, like there's the intersection of culture and sports and how we can mesh those up and cross them over. And we have some internal collaborations coming that celebrate that as well. But I know I kind of drifted away from the athletes, but this is when it comes to values for us. It's like the crossover, kind of their relevance for other businesses, the celebration of our heritage, and then the creating a team over an athlete roster is probably the most important for us.
That's really cool to think about how they kind of fit in. I mean, what other ways are you sort of putting the athletes to work, I guess, is a question I'd love to know. Because obviously, yeah, there are specific goals in terms of output and whatnot, but you've talked about already how they play a role in innovation with the brand and specifically the product. Are there other areas that you've been kind of tapping into them to help develop where you're going with the brand?
Yeah, 100%. So product creation we talked about is a big one where we always, for every part of the business, if it's our bike business, bike and climb for 510, or more trail running, snow, outdoor hike for Terrex, product creation is a big one. But also then tapping into their communities and into their influence is massive for us because we're still emerging as an outdoor brand, especially in North America. So really having them be community influencers is really, really important for us. So that's why we are authentically looking for people that really love the brand more so than love a contract with a brand. Because it's important for us that they can be the people that really influence their communities and share the love and spread the love about adidas Terrex and 510. Now
Very
I
cool.
said Adidas. Did you notice? Sometimes I'll get into this, but we need to make this clear. It's Adidas.
All right, all right. I
It's
was gonna
Adidas.
ask. I've
I'm getting into this sometimes as well. It's like it depends on, and obviously I will not fight this, and it's like a fun little cultural nuance. So I would catch myself saying Adidas myself. It just comes natural now, but originally it's Adidas. It becomes harder and harder for me the longer I'm here. It rolls off the tongue so easy, Adidas.
Yeah, yeah, right? Well, I think
Mhm.
that's it. I think we're all safe if we just say Audi, right? Like
Yep.
That's
Yeah, I love that.
first name anyway of the founder. So
Well, you will never be blamed. You'll never be blamed. It's kind of part of the history here, right? The Adidas. I mean, it's even coming back to Run DMC. It was in that song, like "My Adidas," if you remember.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there you go. It's Rum DMC's fault then. It's nothing to do with me.
I like that.
Uh, I'd be curious to hear your own experience of, you do get a chance working for a big brand to interface with a lot of other teams, not just different functions, but different verticals. So you're in the same building with that culture team, with the, probably basketball is a floor below you or whatever, and soccer, or whatever. Who are you taking the most inspiration from when you're kind of looking around and seeing the level of execution or the budgets or the athletes or whatever? Where are you really inspired when it comes to the other people that, work at the same place you do?
A ton, Aaron. Honestly, I couldn't pinpoint one team here, but I'm really good at spotting authentic stories. When I sniff authentic stories here and there, that piques my interest. And while we are outdoor as a team, we have a lot of different teams within the big brand that engage with smaller subcultures or niches or specialist sports. I mean, like rowing, boxing, fencing, all this. So I think those teams, this is with those teams we team up a lot when it comes to ways of working, processes, finding those nimble ways of kind of being a small team in a big brand. But then for the big teams and the resources they get, this is what we leverage a lot as well when it comes to just innovation, resources for material innovation, resources, partners that we could potentially tap into, communities. So it goes in it's like living that tension, like big world and small world. So it goes in all different ways, but it's really cool. It's a very inspiring atmosphere to my whole world is outdoor. That's all I work in. But every day on campus and in different meetings with different teams, I get exposed to so many different worlds that I can learn about, I can get inspired by, and take notes for my own projects.
You've talked a little bit about just the tension of, being one of the smaller teams in this bigger brand, but where's been the biggest challenge for you over this journey? Because I think, we've heard all the good stuff, like, oh, I started at the intern level and then I worked my way up and now I'm helping, I'm running the show for North America with all this stuff. But surely there have been some moments that have been a real struggle. And I feel like that's where we always sort of learn the most. What have been those moments where you've had like big inflection points or stuff that you've learned?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges that come with being a small team in a big corporation, and the biggest summary would probably just getting mind share and airtime with the decision makers on that. So it's nice kind of being on your own and making fast decisions. But then if you need support to just cut through the noise with different audiences and you're like, we have this big brand there that we could leverage, like just get our jacket on an Anthony Edwards or whatever, like, like as a fun example. I haven't actually asked that. I might. But this is really hard because as a big brand, we need to respect that there's big priorities and big responsibilities as well. And outdoor is not always on that priority list, even if it's our whole world. So that is a big challenge. We are in constant pitch mode. We are knocking on many doors, getting support from our cross-functional partners and the teams. And it's always interesting because all of them, everybody in the brand loves the outdoor product. They are all biggest fans of Terrex and 510. They're mostly, I mean, most of us live in Portland here. We're all outdoor lovers. But then still, they have an everyday job that they need to fulfill with lots of big priorities. So coming up on that agenda is not always easy for us. So then sometimes, as probably many teams like us, we have days where just like, oh, we wish we would just like take it all out of there and do our own. But then we're like, no, no, because there's so much we would miss. I mean, we are part of the Adi culture. The Adi culture is part of us. Like I sometimes say, we have this double positioning, right? We want to bring outdoor to the Adidas consumer, and we want to bring Adidas to the outdoor consumer. And both these worlds and different positionings create different tactics and different strategies. And I think it's a beautiful challenge to have. So I wouldn't want it any other way. And I honestly enjoy it. I enjoy the challenges too. I mean, they make us learn, right? And make us grow.
Think that's it. It can be so exhausting sometimes to feel like you're always fighting, but the thing that you're fighting for is sort of the thing that you love, and that's what makes it meaningful. You have some meaning behind it all. It's not just about moving SKUs. It's about really like the opportunity that you have at Audi to, take a giant brand and point it in the direction of the thing that you love is not to be understated. I think that's a really important element that, who else could do that? What other big brand could you turn their attention into this category and really have them plug resources into it, have them unlock opportunities and projects and ideas and products and stuff? The opportunity with Terex is such a massive one, and we're happy to have people that know what they're doing at the helm of it.
Thank you so much. I totally agree, and I feel like the outdoor consumer base and the outdoor community has been evolving so much over these last year, and I feel there is an openness for different solutions more so than ever before. So, and I also feel not all the solutions are out there right now by either traditional brands or athletic brands or challenger brands. So it will be really interesting to kind of define together and let this evolve and see where this can go.
There was you and I were talking on Slack, on the Second Nature Slack not too long ago, and you had referenced Audi as a challenger brand, which kind of blew my mind a little bit because I feel like I kind of lump Audi in with some of the big dogs. It's been around for a long time. You've been present for such a long time. The rest of the company makes up such a big element. But I'd love to hear kind of from you directly. Why is Audi a challenger brand?
Yeah, that might have come down to definitions, but we are both. I think we're both, right? We're a really established brand, but then many people, if you ask them if they know Terex, if you don't put the Adidas before, they're like, "Yeah, sure, I know Arc'teryx." I was like, "No, do you know Terex?" um, what T-Rex? We had like all these different names and or relations to other existing outdoor brands. So that's why I'm like, yeah, you're kind of a challenger brand in the outdoor industry if you're not an outdoor brand. And we are not an outdoor brand, we are an outdoor proposition within an athletic brand. So this was where my challenger comes from. And there we need to be aware that there will be parts of the community that will never get to win with because they're like, no, I would never buy a product from not a true outdoor brand. And they wouldn't care about the fact that Adidas has been making hiking boots before Adidas was even called Adidas. Like they wouldn't care about this. It's like, no, you're not a vertical outdoor brand. I'll not consider a product from you. I know you as a soccer brand or as a lifestyle brand. And so that's why it's like I think we have a challenger identity within the outdoor community as an established brand. Does it answer your question?
Yeah,
That's my view on it. But
no,
also I
it's
feel you have so many personal experiences with our brand. That's why it's like for you that was mind blowing. It's like, no, I've been working with outdoor in biking and trail running and all that for a long time. So yeah, you have a different view, but also you've been exposed to the European business a lot longer, which there we're way more mature in the European area than we are in the North American area from a business perspective too.
that is true. Actually, when we worked with the team way back in the day, we couldn't even work with anybody in the Portland office. It was all through Germany, and that was a weird thing. I think that was during the distributor era. Everything we got came from that office. So I've been to the place in Germany and seen it firsthand. And obviously, there's an amazing video that came out not too long ago from Danny McCaskill. That was crazy. You get a really good sense of. I mean, I had been there 15, 20 years ago when I saw the place and it was incredible then. But then to see the video in the Danny McCaskill video where you see where HQ looks like now, it's like a completely different place. And the technology that's there, I mean, he's just riding through the areas, but you can kind of see like, oh, what's that over there? It's pretty wild. Like it's developed into a real campus. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up this point because this is such a good example of celebrating like being outdoor and being Adi, or like being bike and being Adi. Like just having like one of the greatest riders having fun in like the world headquarters of a big sports company and just making it his playground. Love that video. Maybe you can link it.
I'll put it in the show
It's a
notes for
fun
sure.
watch. And yeah, really good example of exactly that kind of double positioning and some things that only we can do.
I'm curious about, I mean, Danny McCaskill is one of the biggest athletes, biggest mountain biker for sure in the world. How do you balance that between 5'10", what you're trying to do with outdoor, and Adi as a global brand? Because is there a desire from sort of the big dogs to be like, how about we bring him up to just like overarching Adi instead of putting him down in 5'10" or Terex? Like the hierarchy of how athletes are treated on not just global but brand levels. Is there a pull on that kind of stuff? How does that manifest?
Yeah, that does happen sometimes. I mean, we've had and have athletes featured in bigger brand campaigns, but our team and also all the other teams working at Adi will always make sure that it's in an authentic way representing the category that they work for and maybe their love for other parts of the business, which is totally fine. But kind of we need to always make it about what the athlete loves and cares about. So if Danny McCaskill would be featured in a big brand campaign, he would do the exact same stuff that he's doing in our videos. Yeah. So that definitely happens, but it's not something that we are opposed against. It's something where we're like, oh yeah, we love the visibility, we love the exposure for our athletes. It's great for them, it's great for their networks and their career. So why not if it's authentically doing what they love doing?
It's very cool. And yeah, to have one of your biggest athletes going and putting a piece together that really highlights everything that that office is about, I'm sure is a big point of pride for everybody that works at the brand, whether they're involved with the outdoor team or not.
Totally.
What I just love to know where you're looking now. Like, what is the future of the outdoor industry? And you can answer this through sort of the Terex lens. You can answer this through your own personal experience in the outdoor. But where do you see things going, and what gets you excited about sort of the future of the outdoors?
So I'll answer this through the lens of obviously my experience, right, and my views as an outdoor lover, as a consumer. So disclaimer: views are my own. I feel the outdoor consumer base has been evolving so much with the pandemic. So many new people came into the space. I don't necessarily feel brands are doing a really good job of engaging with all these new consumers. And then really in a lot of instances, what I observe is that this consumer does multiple sports. They don't define themselves necessarily as only a trail runner, only a mountain biker, only but experimenting, trying out different outdoor sports. A lot of them are more recreational, more casual about it, not going that hardcore. One trend that I and we as a business observe as well is like the trend of micro adventures that are a little closer to your home where you live. It's not like preparing for this big project, for this big expedition, but a little less gear, just like adventures closer to where you live, of all different types of outdoor sports. So bigger consumer base, harder to engage with on a constant level because they are not outdoors, not the only thing that they are doing. And I say all this, there's still the hardcore athletes, right? That are at the core of our community and that we work with and support. But I see a big opportunity in making lifelong outdoor lovers within the industry. And I haven't necessarily seen that happening. And the market data supports that as well. I mean, the outdoor market has been declining. Most of the traditional brands across footwear and apparel have been declining in market share. You see athletic brands like Worry gaining share over and over every quarter, which I mean, incredible product, but not outdoor specific product. Very versatile, very multifunctional product that you can wear every day, running your errands, to the gym, on a hike, showing that a little more casual approach to outdoor activities. And I think this is probably one of the most interesting trends. And then at the same time, we have things like ultra trail running gaining so much more traction, and people like you and I, or at least I, who was never like, oh no, I'll never run more than a half marathon, now like, oh yeah, that would be kind of cool. I could just make it an all day or 2 day trip and whatever. And so many people running really, really hard and really, really long, but with kind of a more casual mindset towards it as well, which I think is so interesting. And so building that community about trail running and ultra trail running is a really interesting one. I think females in the sport always very, very near and dear to my heart as well, and kind of the how just amazing badass women in the sport crush it and now get more and more attention and mind share in their leading positions in the sport from a athlete, but also from a just community engagement and influencing level. Super interesting. So yeah, lots of interesting trends, but I haven't necessarily felt that the solutions are out there yet. Even if you just look at the marketplace, there's some, I think, really inspiring retailers, not at scale in my naive mind. I think there's an opportunity for more destinations that offer more holistic kind of outdoor and lifestyle propositions to people where this we're just an outdoor lifestyle. We go hard, but we also live it every day, and finding marketplaces and destinations where we can shop for outdoor and everyday life. I think there's an opportunity there to create more destinations as well.
It's really great. And, like we talk about the reason for business is to solve problems. And there's a lot of stuff in there that people could solve for and reap
Yeah,
the
hit
benefits
me
of
up.
with it.
Let's talk. Let's talk.
Amazing, amazing. This has been a really fun conversation. And, you've been listening to Second Nature for a while, and you know that we usually end with a segment called BPC, which is brand product content. As you're the guest, I'll open it to you. What's something that you're fired up about in one of those categories?
Okay. Well, Aaron, I'm in Europe right now, spending some time with family. So I thought I'll bring something over. Might not be a new invention, but something that I wish I would see more in the US, to be very honest with you. And it's the concept, or do you know the concept of family outdoor hotels and family outdoor stays in Europe? It's a really big, like a big thing. Conveniently located amazing hotels right at mountain bike trails, ski resorts, amazing outdoor areas, hiking areas, where it's just the best offering for your kids, but then also for the grown-ups. So they have grown-up only, they call it kids or family hotels, but they have some grown-up only wellness areas or something. So it's really like the kiddos have all the other kids there. They have amazing, if you want to do something as a family, you can, but there's also amazing care and services, cooking classes, outdoor insect classes, whatever for the kids. And we all know it as outdoor lovers, like those with little kids, those activities that take up a lot of time. And you cannot necessarily take your kids like mountain biking, surfing, ski touring, split boarding, all those fun things. It's hard to get this in a regular at a regular base as a parent of young kids. So the concept of family hotels, you can find them all over Austria, Italy, like South Tyrol, the Dolomites, Switzerland, so many, and it's absolutely incredible. So I can only recommend for my next Europe trip for sure. I'll take one. I see a lot of content online. Now you will see too, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but also all my friends. And it's I especially love it because it's not just for the kids or just for the parents, but it's really something for everyone, and everyone gets the most out of that vacation.
That's
So that's
so
that's my
cool.
BPC today. Something over from the Alps and from the Dolomites, like some of the European mountain areas, over to us, which I would love to have a nice vacation with my family, but still get lots of ski touring in, or lots of mountain biking in, or gravel biking. So just combining it all together.
Wow, that would be really, really cool to bring over. We talk so much about cross pollination where, you look at another industry and you take some inspiration from that and put it into your own output. but this idea of like, hey, this works in Europe. I remember my first couple trips to Europe. I was like, well, Europe's been around for way longer than the States. They've definitely figured some stuff out here that definitely does not exist back in the States. The first one for me was actually the towel warmers in the bathroom. That blew my mind the first time I saw it. But this is just another example of something that Europe is doing and probably has been doing for a long time that should absolutely exist in the States. And if it does exist in the States, somebody needs to let us know in the Slack channel so we can call that one out. I know like our friends at Campfire Ranch listen to this and they have a bunch of different, spots, but I don't know if they have the childcare part as part of that, but
Let us
that
know.
that would open up so many doors for so many people because my kids are just starting to ride mountain bikes, but not the way that I ride mountain bikes.
Yeah, really cool. For
That's
sure.
awesome. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, so my BPC this week is Rebecca Rush's new podcast. She's a couple episodes in. There's one with Kelly Starrett. Yeah, just so many cool conversations that she's had. The first one was with Michael Gervais. There's all these incredible people that are in Rebecca's network when it comes to the high performance space, when it comes to sort of like mindset, performance, and she's done so many incredible things on the bike and off the bike, from Blood Road, her film, from Rebecca's Private Idaho, this big gravel event, and now she's really attacking this whole podcast space with a podcast called What's the Rush. So this is my new favorite podcast right now, and I'm really excited to see kind of where she takes this whole thing, because the people that have guided her in her career all have this incredible insight that have unlocked huge wins for her, both on the podium and in life. And if now she's kind of bringing all those people to us, I'm so fired up. I can't wait to see kind of all the guests that she kind of brings through. So what's the rush, Rebecca Rush? Yeah, I'm really excited for this one.
Cannot wait to give this one a listen. Yeah, if you have like such a wide range of knowledge and experience and you get to share this with people in a very approachable way, that's love listening to that content. So cannot
Yeah,
wait.
that's what it's all about. Well, thank you again for being on the pod today. This is such a fun conversation, and I think the insights and just like all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into a brand of this size. I think we don't often get to hear this kind of stuff, so I really appreciate the transparency and just the insight. And I think there's some real tactical stuff that people are going to take from this too, of just even how to work and advance throughout their own careers. So thanks so much for being on the pod.
I'm so honored. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much, Erin, for having me.